Sounds good.
Real
Hi
quick, is
guys,
this
good night to
Ijaz?
everyone.
Hey, is this Ijaz Smith or is it not that guy?
Ijaz Smith, definitely not a Smith, if that's
Okay,
what you're asking.
sorry.
All good. So guys, what's the plan here? I just joined.
Okay.
I'm not sure
So
what's
yeah,
going on.
the plan that we're going to be talking about now is the resurrection of Jesus Christ, and you are obviously going to be going on Team Muslim, and Have a Blessed Day is going to be Team Christ. So you would basically just hash it out, talk about the resurrection. You say that it
Is
was
it on the resurrection or the crucifixion or
The
both?
resurrection. The resurrection involves the crucifixion.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you for the
all right.
clarification. All right, please proceed as needed.
Yeah, I've got a simple philosophy on it. Any argument against the resurrection of Jesus, by your perspective, is going to be an argument from silence, because it comes 500 to 600 years later. There's no attested manuscript tradition nor oral tradition to match that of Jesus' time on claiming of him being God, or the attested sources, inner and outer sources of him being crucified.
So my position does not depend on the Quran. It actually depends on the historical method, textual criticism, form criticism, and source criticism. It would not be valid to describe it as an argument from silence because it is actually expected that there would be evidence, both archaeological and historiographical, as it pertains to the crucifixion of Christ Jesus, as well as the resurrection. I reject your presupposition that there should not be contemporaneous evidence or that there isn't because this is actually expected. So I'm not sure where this notion comes from, and I think a priori we have to reject that. You must qualify
Because
the claim before you can proceed.
Because I hold historical standards as well, but you saying that because you don't have any argument for your view, let an argument from silence, that doesn't hold. Yet we have reliable information amongst whom Jesus was, what he claimed to be, earlier attested by hundreds and hundreds of years.
Yeah, so I didn't actually say that I am arguing from silence. I said I disagree with your assertion that I would be arguing from silence.
All right.
I
Well,
would
what
point out
evidence
here
can you
as
put
well,
forward if you'd like?
right?
Give me 1
If
second.
I could just, yeah, if I could just
Yeah, give me 1
respond.
moment.
Okay, take your time.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so to begin with, I didn't say that we didn't have evidence or that we need to appeal to the Quran. I can simply say from a position using the traditional historical method, there is no reasonable basis to believe that Christ Jesus believed himself to be God, that he was crucified, or that he was indeed resurrected. I think for any Christian to make that claim, one, they would have to appeal to what we would call uh, methodical credulity within the historical method as it pertains to New Testament and early Christian sources. They have to ignore the problem of the aretologies and the bioi in the genre that they're in and its relation to the concept of ipsissimo vox, writing homonymously in the voice of other people. As far as I'm aware, most New Testament scholars would accept that the Gospels and the New Testament in general, save for a number of Paul's epistles, as a source of valid information, would traditionally be invalid because they are written homonymously. And so to appeal to it, I think, would be wrong. We would actually need to qualify each and every evidence that you bring to demonstrate your claim. Just to be clear here, we are applying the negative.
There's a false
Just
issue
to
there.
finish here. Yeah, let me just conclude my
Yeah, go
thoughts
for it.
here. We are applying the negative evidence principle, which as described by Dr. Gary Habermas, that if you have new information which discredits the initial claims made to arrive at your previous conclusion, this new information, if it affects the claim, thus change in it, would actually apply historically and can be applied to the crucifixion because this principle allows us to use modern data to correct the assumptions used to arrive at the conclusion about Jesus claiming to be God, the crucifixion occurring, and the resurrection occurring. I'll end there. Thank you.
Yeah, you said something about the credulity method, which assumes that texts are reliable until proven otherwise. Correct?
It's along those lines, yeah. But you presuppose that whatever evidence you bring
Yeah,
is
but I'm
true and
not
correct
presupposing
before
that, though.
assessing them.
Yeah, but I'm
Well,
not
you cannot
presupposing
demonstrate it.
credulity, and neither do historians only impose credulity.
What do you think? What method of the three do you think they use then?
Obviously, you should know that there's not a universal method that's widely attested to.
That's why I said that there were three. So which of the three are you saying applies? I would understand if I said one was universal, but three is the general categorization for the method that one uses when assessing evidence. So are you aware of the three categories that almost all of scholarship uses?
I am. Credulity, skepticism, neutrality.
Perfect. So which one do you think most scholars tend to use?
There isn't one that they tend to use mostly. It's universally attested to. It's depending on the case that they're looking at. I can give
You
you
just
6
said it.
different quotes by people out of a religious sect that attest to this.
So you just said that there was no universal method, and then you just said that they universally do use a method. Can you please
No,
clarify for
I
me what
said
that statement means?
universally, there isn't a universal method. That is the point I've been holding. So to say that we can only use credulity for this is not going to work. To say we can only use the skepticism view the Bar Ehrman hold is not going to work. To say we're going to hold the neutrality view is not going to work. There's not one contemporary view that holds attested to for all of historians. They're used by a case-by-case basis. And I would completely disagree with the presumption that, now some Christian scholars do, but someone like Mike Licona does it, of using credulity when looking at the historiographical approach of the resurrection of Jesus. Because you seem to be pretty familiar with Gary Habermas. Him himself is more of a liberal historian than he is most other Christian scholars. But him himself, when it comes to Mike Licona, does not hold a credulity view of saying you assume the text is reliable until proven otherwise. Although you could make a good claim if you wanted to, saying of, is the text guilty until proven innocent or innocent until proven guilty? But that's not the point I'm trying to hold. What is your evidence that is earlier attested to than the evidence we have that of the manuscripts of the New Testament of whom Jesus is, by the Greco-Roman biographies of Jesus?
So just let me know when you're finished so you don't cut
Oh, I'm
me off
done.
when I'm making my points. Oh, you're done now. Okay,
Yeah, I would
sorry.
like
I
to see
thought when
your
I was
evidence.
speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You see, I thought you were done, but you're still interrupting me. Can you chill for a moment? So just to correct you, and I want you to pay very close attention, maybe adjust the headphones a bit, but I did not say that everyone uses methodical credulity. So please pay very close attention to what I'm saying because you're drifting away from the points that I actually made. So
I
to
didn't say that.
continue before I was interrupted, but yes, you did, and you can go back and check the recording. So please, I am asking you to pay attention. So my point was before I was interrupted, rudely that is, that most scholars tend to use methodical credulity when it comes to the New Testament documents. I have not seen historians engage in form and source criticism in their assessment of the historical reliability of the crucifixion and or resurrection. And I will hold you to the task of demonstrating that they do commit to such things. The only person I know that likely does that is Dr. Bart Ehrman, but I don't rely on him for my views. Secondly, you made the false assumption that I would have to bring a contrary evidence earlier than the New Testament to deny the crucifixion and the resurrection. That's not how it works. The burden is upon you because you assume that the New Testament narratives are true, that these events did happen. So that burden is on you, not on me.
Okay, so
But
well,
as
then this isn't
insofar,
an
can I
evidence of the
finish?
resurrection of Jesus. And is this an
Can I
is this
finish?
a no? Hang on. Is this a debate over the
Okay,
resurrection of
so
Jesus, or is this a
we can
debate over
interrupt each other.
is the New Testament reliable?
No, well, the thing is, when I came here, I asked what the topic was, and three things were defined. Is Jesus God? Did the crucifixion happen? And the resurrection. When I asked, you yourself specifically said the crucifixion and the resurrection go hand in hand. Then we moved to the question of methodology and evidence. When I raised the question about methodology, that's how we ended up at methodical credulity, neutrality, or skepticism. Now we are assessing the evidence. And so if you're saying we should not, in a conversation about your claim, that we should not assess the quality of the evidence, then I'm sorry, you have missed the purpose of historiography, and more so, you've missed the point of the negative evidence principle. So I put the question back again to you. If you claim that your evidence is so strong and insurmountable, then you should be willing to qualify them. And I'm not willing to grant the presupposition that they are inherently reliable. That's a burden on you to qualify
Yeah.
that claim, not me.
Okay. Well, if you don't agree with the New Testament, then we just need to switch the whole debate. Is the New Testament reliable? And we can go at that hand in hand all day, because that's going to be the first part. Because yeah, a lot of my proof is going to be the autobiography of the early attest of what we know of Jesus. So if we can prove that's reliable, then yeah, we're going to have a good burden of proof. Because you don't consider that evidence, then the
I
whole
don't
debate
consider
needs to
it
switch.
reliable evidence. Yeah, I don't claim it's reliable evidence. I would put the point here that I am debating the crucifixion and resurrection, and we are debating the quality of one of your sources, which is the New Testament. So it's not a separate debate, it's the same debate, but we're qualifying one of the evidences that you're
Yeah, but
appealing
you're
to.
talking about the sources in the New Testament aren't reliable.
Well,
Hence
they
Jesus
aren't, hence
claiming
the
to be God.
crucifixion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And that's where we're going to move on. Then that's when we're going to have to change the debate topic.
Now we can continue and qualify your claim that it is reliable.
We cannot continue about the resurrection of Jesus because it's going to have to switch to is the New Testament reliable? It's a whole different subject.
So are you saying you can't argue for the resurrection without qualifying the quality of your evidence?
I'm saying that you cannot argue the point that I'm holding because you're saying that the New Testament is unreliable, and that itself is a whole different subject.
Well, then debate it.
All right, if you want to debate the New Testament reliability, I'm all for it.
But yeah, so like I said, go right ahead. Remember, I asked you the claim is on your part that your source is reliable. So go right ahead. I'll mute
Yep.
myself and listen to your case.
Yep. I deem it. I'll just use one simple point to start off with, and I guess we can go back and forth. But the first point I'll start off with, because I don't like to rebuttal, is I'm trying to find it. Where's it at? Is this it? It's not here. I got it off the top of my head though. I deem manuscripts reliable by 4 different ways, 4 different tests. That is the literary style, the manuscript evidence, or how many copies we have, the internal consistency, and also, I'm forgetting the 4th one right now, but those would be probably the main ones. Oh no, archaeological evidence to corroborate with such manuscript. Those would be my starting point, the New Testament. And that's without getting through the 24,000 copies we have of the New Testament.
Yeah, it's
Or the earliest fragments.
28,500. Yeah, it's 28,500 on something. I would suggest you read Leon Wagner's An Introduction to New Testament Textual
Yeah,
Criticism.
well, the
One
problem
of the
is
three.
that doesn't.
Could I
Yeah, go for it.
could I finish my?
Yeah.
Yeah, you listed 4 points. I want to address them. Of one of the, and I don't remember all 4, but I'm going to try to comment on that. And one of the number of manuscripts, this is as Dr. Leon Wagner indicates, this is something that beginners, this is his words, not mine. People new to the science of textual criticism appeal to, but they don't understand that certain number of copies does not qualify the progenitor text itself or the archetypal text. So this is definitely irrelevant. When it comes to internal consistency, then you have to base the arguments on the structure of the work and its quality based on a potential archetype, not on the extant copies. So you actually have to ignore the later copies and focus on the earlier ones. We know from Dr. Philip Comfort's a text and translation commentary, he lists places where the harmonizations were done between the Synoptic Gospels and the Gospel of John. So we know that if you do appeal to internal consistencies, that this is something that over time coalesced into one more or less so cohesive tradition. So we can ignore that. I think the other point you mentioned was the manuscript evidence. Most of them are after the 9th century CE. I would actually argue that the terminus antiquem for most of the manuscripts you will appeal to that you claim should be in the early 2nd century are actually extended into the 3rd century. And I can reference Dr. Brent Nongbu on that, or perhaps Pasquale Orsini and what Dr. Lavi Hurtado had to say about the P66 and P75. So I would rest my case there. I don't think any of the 4 points you mentioned qualifies any single manuscript of the New Testament to be reliable. So pick one and we can discuss it, or pick a family of texts. If you're familiar with textual criticism, you know that there are family of texts. Choose one, and we can break it down or take the conversation in whatever direction you want. Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to hear your evidence on why you think there are issues internally consistent with the New Testament.
Because of scribal harmonizations between the different gospels themselves and within singular gospels themselves.
Can you give me a
I would
couple
act,
examples?
let me see, think of an easy one. Give me a second and I'll pull out my work and I'll get it for you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna get it from my bed. I think one of the easiest ones I could potentially point out is Codex Washingtonianus and the longer reading to the Gospel of Mark, where it actually points out the same thing that Paul writes in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 4, that the God of this world is actually Satan. This is a very well-known, popular scribal harmonization. I could perhaps also even add here, here's my book. I could perhaps even add here the words of Christ Jesus on the cross himself, whether it was Eloi, Eloi, or Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani. The earlier manuscript is rejected in lieu of the 5th century Codex Bezae and Codex Washingtonianus' reading. So yeah, these are a couple of harmonizations which are well known and familiar to scholarship. Which one of those do you reject? And we could perhaps address one of them.
Yeah, can you put them in voice text other?
Okay, I'll have to get on my computer for that, I suppose. Okay, give me like a minute so I can get my laptop
Sounds
up and
good.
running. You can continue with a response in the interim period.
Yeah, I mean, I completely disagree. I think one of the key points of this is that I think it's widely attested by scholars that the New Testament is valid. You get into the metaphysical claims of an anti-supernatural worldview of that. So I don't feel like the burden of proof here is on me to determine that the New Testament is valid. I think that's pretty much there. So I think the burden of proof is
Well,
on you, and I'm all day for sitting here and figuring this out.
yeah, so here's the problem. You can't come to me and say scholars accept that the New Testament is a reliable text. Insofar as I am aware, there is zero consensus that the narrative of the crucifixion as presented in the Gospels is a historical event. In fact, most historians filter out much of the New Testament's narrative and basically only affirm the crucifixion itself. Anything before and after that they consider to be historically unreliable. So
Yeah,
no,
you're
I
absolutely
don't
wrong
grant, I
about that.
don't.
I'm gonna need sources.
Okay, okay, so give me any scholar that, sorry, give me a consent, give me a quote of the status Christianus of the narrative of the crucifixion being a historical fact that's presented in the New Testament Gospels.
I can give you quite a
Just
few
one.
scholars that hold the New Testament are reliable that are accredited
Yeah,
scholars.
no, not scholars. I'm saying specific to the historicity of the crucifixion narrative. That is beginning with the arrest of Christ Jesus, the interrogation, the voting of the crowd, the whipping beforehand, the carrying of the cross, being on the cross, and then being buried and resurrected. There is no consensus among scholars that the narrative as presented in the New Testament regarding those series of events is historical in any meaningful way. So could you please provide an evidence to the contrary on that? I'm more than happy to be corrected.
Oh yeah, sure. Let's go to it. So what, I'm supposed to show that there are scholars that hold the view that Jesus and the historical facts line up when you can tie that in with archaeological evidence?
No, so my question was very, very specific. My claim was, and thus my question followed, that there is no consensus among scholars from the arrest of Christ Jesus to his resurrection that entire narrative they consider the narrative specifically to be historically
Oh
reliable.
yeah, well
So
half of
most
them don't have anti-supernatural worldviews on top of that, so sure.
yeah, but that is irrelevant because I'm speaking of from the arrest. So there were multiple events between the arrest and the resurrection. If they reject the resurrection, then you can come and claim to me that they consider the gospel's narratives to be reliable. So we can remove. I'll even grant it to you. We can remove the resurrection. Give me a
So
any reference of scholarship as a body saying from the arrest to the crucifixion that narrative in the gospels is
I
reliable.
can give you a fat amount of scholars that are accredited. Even people like Bart Ehrman who say that the New Testament are reliable.
So that's not the question I asked. I asked about the events from the arrest of Christ Jesus to the crucifixion.
What do you mean?
Okay, one more time, right? My claim is, assuming that your claim is true, that historians consider the entirety of the gospel narratives to be valid and true and historical, I am saying to you, can you provide a single evidence of any status Christianus presented by scholars themselves from the event of the arrest of Christ Jesus to the crucifixion event itself? That between these two events, the arrest and the crucifixion, that the narrative from the arrest to the crucifixion is historically true and reliable. Do you have such a quote which would evidence that? I am going to say to you that the answer is no, but you are more than welcome to prove me wrong.
That exact claim, probably no. I've
Well,
never
that's what
looked
I'm
into that
saying.
exact sentence you have presumed.
So I didn't presume
What I
anything.
do know is that there are many scholars that deem the New Testament reliable and credible by what it says, even to the points of people like F.F. Bruce, who hold the view, and it's backed up by archaeological evidence that prove that the events in the Bible are true.
Mhm. So again, one more time, if you're saying that, so if the entirety of it is true, and you say to me that's what they claim to be reliable, but then I ask you the events from the arrest to the crucifixion itself, do they consider that to be historically reliable and true? And you say no, you can't present such a claim. Then that begs the question: how can they affirm the entire New Testament narrative, yet somehow you can't provide a quote for at least some
That
of
one
it being
sentence
valid
is
and
a lot
true?
easier than the four you presumed before. I'm sure I can get some
What one
historians on
sentence?
that. Absolutely.
What, what one sentence?
The one sentence is talking about Jesus before and then going to pick.
So from the arrest to the crucifixion. Can you
Yes.
give me one scholar?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Okay, take your time. I remember it has to be from a status Christianus.
Has to be from what?
A status how do you pronounce this? Status Christianus.
What does that mean?
I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with academic literature, so this should be simple for you.
Oh no, I'm not familiar with this word at all.
Okay, I'm gonna write, guys. How do I access the chat? Uh, how do I? Okay, my first button. I don't know how to access the chat, so I can write it for you. Oh no, that's to put on the
I
video.
would
So
scroll
state
up
for
Yes, for all text, please go to voice text other.
past the voice chats if you're on
oh,
mobile and you see it.
okay, well, give me one guys, I'm just not familiar with what do you call this program? AME questions server. What did you guys is it voice text other? Is that where it is?
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay, so I'm gonna write the word status or status
Sorry.
Christianus. I hope I print Christianus. That seems just about valid. Right, so that's what's in academic literature. When someone does a status Christianus, what they're doing is they are validating or listing what the scholarly consensus is of something, of anything. So it's used in all sciences and sub-sciences in academic study. So the question. So in reference to the historical reliability of the narrative of Christ's crucifixion in the New Testament, I am not aware of a single status Christianus which mentions that narrative is historically reliable in and of itself. So if you can provide that, I'll be more than happy to be corrected, and I'll apologize to the room for having misled them.
Hey, give me one moment. Let me see.
Take your time. It's not a rush, by the way. Take your time. Is this meant to be one on? Hold on, I'm still in voice here. Is this meant to be one on one, or is there any other
Yes,
Christian that wants to step up as well?
this is just one-on-one between you and Have a Blessed Day.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you for the good conversation so far, guys. I've appreciated it quite a lot. How do you guys know Hassan, by the way? He's a nice kid, isn't he? Smoking tire.
They won't say positive things about me, but you know,
Oh, well, I like you. I think that should be enough.
alhamdulillah. That's all that matters to me.
I mean, you are kind of terrible on Clubhouse, but I'm so cool with you, bro.
That's true.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, but I was gonna ask what does status questianus like? It's like something unquestionable that all historians accept. What
No,
did that mean?
it means the state of the question. So when you do like a study, what you do is you look at the writings of the top scholars at that day, the most senior scholars, usually emeritus professors. What you do is you look at their publications over time, and you actually state and list with references what their position is on a specific matter, and at the end of it, you give a comprehensive summary. Like 100 scholars say that this view is correct because of Y reasons. And then he might provide a counter view, and then he concludes by stating what most scholars at this point accept and the problems that they may have with future investigations into the matter. So it applies in all sciences that you would study at university, basically. So it's a Latin phrase if anyone didn't know.
Hmm.
Does that answer your question?
Yes. Is there an example of this in the New Testament?
Yeah, quite a few times actually. Especially when it comes to variant readings within the text. It's pretty popular.
Interesting.
Well, who's the guy's name that I'm speaking with, Hassan?
Have a blessed day. That's his name.
Have a blessed day. Okay. Yeah, I apologize. I didn't know his name. Have a blessed day. Did you get a reference or quote? Are you having
I'm
a nice
looking
news with that?
around. I think I found this interesting one that I'm trying to read. I'm trying to see.
Okay, take your time. I do have to say though, it is 2:08 a.m. for me. I may leave by 2:20, but we can always continue this. We can set up a date, God willing, if that's okay with everyone
Sure.
else.
Absolutely. I would love to do so. In fact, because I'm learning new things.
I am learning new things as well. This is something that we actually teach at uni. There's a Latin phrase, dice or discede, learn or leave. So whatever interaction you have, try to learn and benefit from it. And if it's not beneficial, then you should leave it. So I'm happy that we can apply that principle tonight.
There's this one about, let's see this one. I cannot seem to find anything. Although finding thing amongst religion on the internet is difficult.
I mean, technically, you don't have to find it tonight. Maybe that was an unfair question to ask. So what we can do is, if
No,
you want,
no,
let's put the.
You were in your rights of kicking my ass on that. Like, if I'm out of my ballpark as my 20-year-old self and I'm going to uncharted waters, I'd rather learn something in that uncharted waters.
No
Absolutely.
problem, bro. But I didn't mean any offense or to like say anything incorrect here. Just take your time, and maybe it is after our conversation I can send you a couple of papers that may perhaps back up your point in some capacity. I just want to have an open and honest conversation. But thank you
Absolutely.
so far for the polite conversation. Well, as you're looking for that, do you have any questions or any challenges that you want to put towards me in the interim?
No, the only thing in my head is telling me I need to read more.
No, we all need to read more, God willing. Right, so I mean, you're probably going to take some time to look for that. Is it okay if we call it quits at 2:11 a.m. and you guys message me and we resume at a later date? Would that be okay?
Sure.
All right, no
Sounds
worries.
good, man.
So have a blessed day, literally everyone, and so have a blessed day. Same to you. Have a good night and salam alaikum to the Muslims.
Have a blessed
Walaikum
one.
salam. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, he knew more.